We will come to that defeat for Liverpool by Fulham and a brilliant Fulham performance, particularly in the first half of that game, and we know they're capable of that. But we'll start with Arsenal. Unlucky to get the penalty given against them. Anything concerning, though, ahead of what realistically are going to be bigger games to come against Real Madrid? I know that they've closed the gap by Liverpool by a point, and there's only a few games remaining this season, and it's still theoretically on for Arsenal. But anything that you think needs sorting out ahead of the Madrid games?
Obviously, losing Gabriel Magalhaes is a big blow for us. Saka just coming back, he's trying to get minutes in his legs. I'd feel a lot more comfortable going into the game at home against the winningest side in the competition with our strong back four. But you know, it's like, listen, Madrid is climbing Everest without the right equipment at the moment for Arsenal. You know, it's going to be a very, very tough game. But it would have been nice to be able to come off of that game with a little bit of confidence. And you know, I just, you know, it was a tough watch for me watching that game and the way that ended up, because I think a 1-0 win in this moment for Arsenal would have been brilliant. Especially, no one's seen Liverpool lose against Fulham, but it would have given us a little bit more confidence. Maybe. But for the penalty decision to go against them like that it was too much for me. I had a proper meltdown. The cats didn't even want to come near me. Kells, they normally come around me. They didn't want to come anywhere near me because I could not believe that was given in the end. And it was a situation as well, one of those where when I saw it, first thing I thought was, oh no, Miles is in trouble again, because like the way people are trying to put him as this kind of like crazy defender who's always causing problems. And the more I watched it, the more I think, look, you see Jack Harrison tries to actually get up because he's got his arm there. Now he's letting go. He's not touched him there. That's nothing to make him actually go down. So I'm thinking, when VAR watch it, if they're going to give anything, they could give a foul for outside the box or something. I don't know.
That's not a pen in.
But I just can't see a pen in that, and I was done.
But even in terms of the Arsenal performance, and that you can completely understand heads going down after that, a penalty like that is given against them. But even in terms of the performance before that, and they were a goal up at that stage, it's whether or not that performance feels the way it does because they're thinking about Real Madrid and they're slightly distracted, or whether it's, you know, a symptom of something that's going on in terms of the people, the players who are available at the moment.
I guess the lack of spark that we saw on Saturday, we've seen it before, to be fair.
Just trying to do just enough to win that game so people can be fit enough to go into that one. I can feel it.
Especially with the injuries. Yeah. And the rotation that Mikel Arteta made for this game makes sense because of the Real Madrid. It's not like Legia War, so it's Real Madrid on Tuesday night. So you could understand why Saka is on the bench, Martinelli is on the bench, Odegaard is on the bench, Partey is on the bench, all of that, okay, makes sense. But I would expect the team to see the game out at 1-0. You go to 1-0 at half-time, Everton, the players are on the back of a Merseyside derby. I know they are home, there's not many home games left, but still, they're also on the beach, they're on holidays, let's be honest. And I think the old Arsenal under Mikel Arteta of last season and the season before would have saw the game out, would have seen the game out, sorry.
Even with a decision, but with a decision like that, 1-0 would have been good.
Yeah, true.
But like that decision, it goes against.
But then after that, you don't have enough to go and win the game again.
The thing is, though, it's not. I think Arsenal look back on this season and regret how it's gone, because it's not like this conspiracy of bad decisions like Wolves last year. Like Arsenal the last 2 years, I thought they were going to win the league this year. Genuinely, like, City will not come back again like that next year. Liverpool haven't been unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? We're not looking and thinking, oh my God, that's the greatest ever side if Liverpool go on to win the title. I think Arsenal are going to regret how this year has gone, because I understand Saka was out injured, can't catch a break, then Gabriel gets the injury. But Arsenal should have had enough this year to push City in a way that we talk about them potentially, you know, no one's really saying, oh, yeah, Arsenal they should have been winning. Surely, we were talking about them last year. They were up there, and now they've kind of slipped down?
No, I don't think we've slipped down. I think we've been amongst it, but like some of the things that's gone against us, Lee, and you have to take that. You have to take that
like
as
what,
part
not
of...
buying another number 9 in the window?
Well, of course, we didn't get the number 9 in the window. You know, you can go back to the January window. Could we have got a striker? Where are we going to get him? They tried for Ollie Watkins, you know, don't know how far they went for that, but that didn't work out. Maybe the summer before, we can talk about them and question the work that they done that summer. Maybe it's to compensate for everything what's happened this season, but we didn't get the striker. You know what I mean? Then we lost Kai Havertz. You know, and then we lost Saka, and then, you know, things. So,
But
it's,
I
and
think
still
the
amongst
injuries-
it. Still
I just don't think they'll get enough. The thing is,
Arsenal
right,
9 points worse off than they were at this stage last season.
they're not going to get a better
Right.
chance than this season,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying. And that's why I think they'll look back on this season and think, what if? Do you know what I mean?
No, but you say they're not going to get a better chance, but then we've got, with the new guy coming in, Andrea Berta, we don't know who he's going to bring. We might get a better chance because the experience that we've got from the last 2 seasons, if we do finish second again, will definitely stand him in good stead. Then it depends. We've seen us linked with Gokares.
Yeah.
So if that happens...
Coming Man United.
You know, we'll see, because that's the problem. There's not enough for the strikers to go around, so you have to try and get them. So once we see what happens in the summer, you go again.
But we've touched on this on here before about the injuries, which I think is a really interesting comparison between Arsenal and Liverpool, because a lot of those Arsenal injuries have been muscular, and you could... We don't know because we're not sort of privy to those kind of discussions. But you could argue that they're coming about because of the amount of football that's being played. We've seen more hamstring injuries.
That has to have a say in it, the amount of games.
Except that hasn't happened at Liverpool. And the reason I think it's an interesting conversation to have today is because there's been talk about whether or not Arne Slot should have rotated more because the Liverpool players were starting to look a bit tired in the game against Fulham. But he's kept those players pretty much fit throughout the rest of the season. I mean, Alisson's was a different injury and he missed a lot of the season, is now out again. That's a different situation. But in terms of outfield players, they haven't had the injuries that a lot of teams have had, those muscular injuries that have come about at the end of a European Championship summer. I just think it'd be really interesting to hear a sports psychologist on that. But it's certainly been a factor. Him keeping the players fit has been a huge factor in Liverpool being able to.
Without that, and you have to look at.
And he has to be praised. That's not luck.
Because we are seeing hamstring injuries exponentially higher, right? But like Arsenal do have to have some form of internal review about the seriousness of them, going from grade 1, 2, and 3 straight to operations. So, of course, you have to look at that because, you know, the way we're training, the way we're trying to play, is obviously affecting the muscles and the hamstrings of the guys. So there's something you have to look at. But at the same time, I know it's gone up with their hamstrings, but you have to look at Slot and their science, probably their sports science team, and think to yourself, well, how comes they're not getting the same kind of injuries?
And this is absolutely not scientific at all, but it also is, there's a different feel around both clubs. It feels like there's a tension around Arsenal, around Mikel Arteta, in a way that there isn't. Arne Slot, I know, was sent off in the late stages of the Merseyside derby, but generally speaking, he's been very relaxed in his press conferences, very relaxed in his dealings with the media. And that, look, we're looking at the intangibles now, because we can all go...
No, but they're all small, it's just fine details. We've seen
and I'm not suggesting that's what's happening, I'm just wondering if it is one of the factors.
I think it's almost like the emotional, like we saw when Leicester a few years ago didn't make the Champions League 2 years in a row, that impact it has on you psychologically. Like, I remember the last game at the Emirates last year, you know, Mikel Arteta went on the mic, you know, the fans were feeling really encouraged, and from what I can gather from you two, you do feel quite still optimistic for next season. But I think, you know, you look at someone like Arne Slot, like, I don't think people talk enough about what he's done since he's come in there, because Jurgen Klopp probably thinking I should have stayed another year, potentially, because I'm sure they never thought City would fall off the way that they have. But he's done an amazing job, hasn't he?
Then
because look, he's coming in after a legend.
Yeah.
Like, Jurgen Klopp is a massive legend for that football club, and Arne Slot's come in and, like...
The way that Slot plays suits Liverpool this season, and that's another argument you can have. Maybe more than Jurgen Klopp's side, when you've got players in who are going to be tired. Because
they had a lot of injuries under Klopp.
It is kind of, and also to go back to the point that you made about, Leanne made about, and you've made before about Arsenal going head to head with this extraordinary City team that have been in the Premier League and constantly trying to, you know, push for records in terms of points total. That it does take a strain on you. And when City did slip up in that season and Liverpool did manage to take advantage, the next season was the Van Dijk injury and they were missing him, and suddenly it felt, because it is exhausting, it will take its toll.
I think you look at as well, and with Arne Slot coming in, you know, I think that everybody would have given, right, he's going to find out what's going on. He didn't, no signings, nothing like that. So everybody's going to see how he goes. I thought the way the fixtures worked out, you say they've got a really good start. So I thought that when people start to really see what's happening with Arne Slot. You heard people say, yeah, well, he's had a good start. Let's see what happens when he plays this team. And they were still beating them, so they got the momentum.
Yeah.
So then you started to see, well, yeah, this guy's kind of calm. He's really cool. They're playing a different kind of football. It feels a little bit less like, you know, the rock and roll. And you think to yourself, well, let's see if he can manage it through and see how it goes. And to be fair, he has. He's done it brilliantly.
Yeah, and it's the
you know,
weight
you
of
can't. Yeah,
expectations too.
and I think that having the start what he had, because people were saying about Liverpool starting the season, yeah, that's an easy start. But then you have to win all those games. I remember I asked Van Dijk the question. I asked him the question. He said, yeah, but you have to win those games, and then you have to continue after. And that's exactly what they've done. Now we may be seeing the tiredness of maybe the end of the season, but the job's kind of nearly done. But I think that he came in without the pressure of having to win anything for Liverpool. Just come in and see what's going on, see what you can do. And listen, it's been an amazing season. He's probably got to get Manager of the Year.
There's a handful of those players who have won the title before with Liverpool. Not a huge amount of them, but there's a few of them. For those for whom it is brand new, can you put your finger on how, or can you explain like how tiring winning a Premier League title is? And what, because we see it a lot. We see teams kind of almost get there and then just start to,
you know what?
to falter, particularly when they're not used to it. There's been a lot around the 30th anniversary of Blackburn winning the title. Leicester kind of just were squeezing those results out at the
There's
the
an
end
emotional
of the
kind of like, there's emotional tiredness you get when you're getting closer to it. I remember because I was injured for a little bit of the last bit of the season. So you're in the dressing room and you can feel it, and you can feel the energy, and you feel in not failure, but you think if we don't get this could be it. You do go in with those games, so you do get a little bit more like that. You get a little bit more tense and tight. Remember we played against Derby. Manu scored the goal, and that was one of the most intense dressing rooms I've been in when we were playing Derby. And we beat them 1-0. I think it might have been at home, or I'm not sure if it was at home or away, but I can remember leading into it, Kels, how nervous everyone was, and how Tony had to tell people to do your jobs, you just do the simple things. And how nervous you were. I remember it until the only time I felt relaxed, I think, is when Mark Overmars scored that second one or something against Everton, and you could just go, wow, it's done. But like, the nervous energy is something that's underrated.
Quick word on the form of Mohamed Salah as well, who is, you know, has been phenomenal in terms of his numbers all season. Some of the performances have not been at his standard of late. Does anybody have an explanation or a...
I mean,
I'll leave it to you, because you know I think Salah is one. I never say a bad word about him.
Yeah.
But if you look at the expected goals and expected assists, and the numbers that he actually has is way above. So he was not going to be.
He was massively outperforming. So is it just a natural adjustment?
I think so. There's a chance against Fulham where the cross arrives, I think, on his right foot just after the bounce, and he blasted. 2 months ago he would have scored that one. Yeah. Just now, that half a second, just not going easy.
You know what I do love about him? I mean, they've done an interview with him not too long ago, Kels, maybe a couple of months ago, where he's saying, I don't know what people expect me to do in every game. I'm supposed to be like, he said, I have moments. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I'm right in the moment. And like, we saw the moments he was having, which was way up in his XG. But at the same time, he himself knows, I'm not going to be, you know, messy all through the game. But when the moment comes to be decisive, he'll be decisive.
I think that's what the best players do. That's what separates the good from the great. You know, the Dennis Bergkamp, Salah, Messi, they are able to come alive. They might not always have to look busy all the time, but I love Mo Salah. You remember what I said on the show? I said, give him what he wants, sign him up, blank check.
Well, listen, I tell you what, that's a conversation we're going to have again before the end of the season. And when the title race is done and dusted, whichever way it goes, we'll be reflecting on that.